Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to this week's Q&A. I'm still getting over whatever sickness I had a week and a half ago, so please once again excuse me if I'm all nasally and funnier sounding than usual. And also, a few different people had contacted me in regards to their unhappiness with the company Patreon. So not the relationship between creators and patrons or anything like that, just the company themselves. And, you know, while I certainly hate politics and don't get involved in any of that stuff, I do understand people's concerns. And I've been very vocal about their very poor customer service over the past year. So I understand if people are pissed at them. So what I think might be the right thing to do is for me to just sign up for whatever's available and let everybody choose whatever's easiest for them. I just don't want to interpret it as if, like, look at this guy signing up for all of them trying to, like, you know, take as much money. It's not, I really genuinely just want to make things easier for everybody, because not only do I genuinely really appreciate all the support, it has become a necessity to keep this stuff running. So I completely understand if people say, you know, this company has pissed me off for whatever reason, I don't want to support that company anymore. So I think Subscribestar is another one. I've already signed up for that. I was going to sign up for the YouTube one, but the thing that really bugged me about it is if you're, at least I think, if you subscribe to me on YouTube for whatever the minimum is $5 a month, you still have to sit through ads. Now, I could be wrong about this. Their paperwork on this was incredibly confusing, so you know, I don't really know what the best thing to do. I really love the interaction between myself and all of the people that have been on the Patreon Discord, the Q&As, all of this stuff. I really think is amazing. And I definitely want to keep that going. I just want to keep it going in a way that's easiest for everybody. So any suggestions at all, please let me know. Also, I'm going to start calling these things the subscriber Q&A, the subscriber giveaways, or maybe supporter giveaways. Actually, if anybody has a good name suggestion, that would be great. I just, you know, I want to be completely agnostic in the whole support thing. All I really care about is that I am so appreciative of everybody's support, and I'd like to keep doing this stuff as long as I can, because not only do I really enjoy it, I feel like I'm making at least a little bit of a difference in the retro gaming scene. So any suggestions on names, any thought on joining more than one, just not for asking more than one donation, just to make it easier on people, please post down below and let me know in the thoughts. Maybe we'll talk about it a little more in next week's Q&A or something. But anyway, sorry for the long ramble. Let's jump right in. First up, Justin Sizon said that he got that 10-DAC HDMI to VGA converter, the one that's very cheap. I think I linked to it a few weeks ago on Amazon, and said that he got really good performance out of it. So I've only used it once or twice, and in the limited interaction I've had with it, I thought it was awesome, especially for the price. I think the last time I checked it was like $15, but it's always under $20, so I mean, you can't, for that price, you can't really beat it. And I've also heard other people test it and say that they got equally as good results as Justin did. I did test it for lag, no lag added. It's just a basic digital to analog converter. So just one more person confirming that if you're looking to go from the OSSC to a VGA input, for a lot of people that might want to use the OSSC as a line doubler into a VGA monitor or something, it's definitely worth giving a shot. Kelly Greenidge asked if I got to do a review on the RetroTink 2X. I did. I'll leave a link down below. I absolutely love it. Zero lag line doubler. I tested it with a few of the HDMI to VGA converters, such as the 10-DAC, and another one that Mike Chi, the creator, recommends that's equally as good. And I just think for $100, it's something that everybody that needs a versatile setup should pick up. I know a lot of people that just have, when I say just, I mean, you know, they have their RGB consoles through a G-SCART into their RGB monitor, and that's all they want, and they love it. So, yeah, it's not for them. But if you ever think, you know, maybe I want to use it on a flat screen, but not always. I might be doing some streaming at some time. So for $100, the compatibility is perfect. It works great. There's no RGB input, but there is component, so I just think it's something that every retro gamer that tinkers all the time should have that as a tool in their toolbox. Also, Kelly asked if I'd bought a Mister, and what do I think of it so far? I think that anybody that gets into it now is getting into it at the beginning of what I assume is going to be a very long and very big wave. So like you're stepping onto the board as the wave is growing. But you need to keep that in mind. So if you buy it and you use one of the cores that's really solid, you'll probably think, wow, this is an awesome replacement or addition to the original. It works great. But if you buy it and you use one of the cores that isn't completed or isn't in its final stages, you might find some bugs and think, I'd probably be better off for the Raspberry Pi for this or that. So, I love it. I'm glad I bought it. I'm going to continue to test with it. It's in my pile of stuff back there. I don't know if you quite see that, but there's some top secret stuff back there that I'll be working on. And that is definitely part of it. So if you enjoy tinkering, definitely pick one up now. If you don't enjoy tinkering, if you just like downloading a pack, assembling something, maybe, spending half a day setting up and then just having a solid solution, get a Raspberry Pi and the RetroTink Ultimate or the RGB Pi or one of those other solutions. Because those, while software emulation would always have a few frames of lag, it's pretty solid now in that you plug it in and it just works. So, I think it pretty much sums it up for both of those. Sam Hall asked, what are my opinions on the likelihood of Analogue releasing an affordable FPGA-based Ness? So I've been very vocal about that company just because I don't understand why certain decisions are made, and I really feel like they could be a world-changing company for anybody that wants to play retro games. So once again, a lot of people criticize me for criticizing them, but this is just my opinion. And my opinion is that I think that the owner likes to have products that are coveted and likes to see products on eBay selling for a lot of money. So I don't think that Chris Tabor, the owner, is out there scrambling to get affordable products to people. I could be dead wrong on this one. And he surprised me before with a bunch of different things. I don't understand the reasons in the order. And, I'm coming from a place where I spent years as technical sales engineering. So I get a little bit of the marketing side. I totally get sales and manufacturing and technical side. But, whatever teams they have doing marketing there, it might even be Chris himself, is brilliant at it. They have everything, they do press releases as if they were Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo. So they're great at the marketing side. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe Chris is sitting there knowing a lot about marketing and in releasing things in certain order for certain ways. That's certainly possible, but I can't understand why they wouldn't do that and why they wouldn't spin off different products based on the cores that Kevtris has designed. I think that the longer they wait, the more other people are going to come out with their own FPGA-based standalone solution, and even if it's half as good, it's still something you could buy as opposed to something you can't. So I don't think it's coming soon, although I really wish it would. I would buy one in a heartbeat because I think that's by far the best Ness I have ever used in my entire life, hands down. Just the real-time switching between an unlimited amount of color palettes and all the different options. It was as perfect as you're gonna get. So I hope they do. I wish they do. I don't really see it. And I've reached out to Chris a bunch of times trying to get him on for an interview, and he always does the "I'm really busy, I'll get back to you," which, he is a very busy guy, but that is usually the excuse. That's usually YouTube speak for, you don't have enough followers for me to be on your podcast yet. So I don't know what to tell you. I love Kevtris. I fanboy out every time I get to talk to him. I hope I'm going to get to see him again soon. And I'll ask him all these questions. But every time I've asked before, he's basically just like, I design everything. I do the FPGA work. I leave everything else up to everybody else. So fair enough on that side. But yeah, I really wish that we could see a lot of those things as affordable standalone products. I just don't hold your breath. Kyle Gamblin asked if there's any idea of when Woozle's Game Boy Player or Game Boy Advance Consoleizer, GBA Zee, is that what you should call it? GBA Zee? Whatever. Any idea when it'll have a GameCube Game Boy Player version, and any idea how it's planned to make it work? So Woozle shot out a million ideas for different follow-up products. It's all a very long time away because this one isn't even released to the public yet. So, every company, whether it's 2 or 3 people or 200 or 300 people, they're always planning the follow-up product at, as the new or as the current one is being finished. And there's a bunch of different ideas. It's just maybe it will work, maybe it won't. How is this going to correspond with other things? Are there different options? So to directly answer your question, any idea of when it'll have a Game Boy Player version? It might never, and if it is, it might be years away. So while I would love any kind of plug-and-play version of that, so you don't have to make any, you don't have to do an install, I don't see it in the near future, and I'm still really excited to get the current kit in the hands of people, because while the feedback on that video I did was overwhelmingly positive, shocking. I just think that once people get it in their hands, they'll really understand why I was ranting about it, and and not just take my word for it, just see how cool a piece of hardware this is, and how it's the first time I think scanlines add to the experience. Sometimes it's better, for like Super Nintendo scanlines. Sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's not, whatever. But this really, in my opinion at least, those scanlines bring out the feel of the LCD screen. So that alone, I think people are going to go nuts for it. But honestly, just give it a try when it comes out, and I wouldn't expect any other products soon. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they have a secret basement, lab somewhere with a bunch of products cooking, but I just don't think it's close to release, if it ever will be. Chris Symes said that he tested Flight of Pigorus and it worked well for him, and he even posted links to footage that he captured for anybody that wants to see what it's like. And that was in response to, I think, 2 podcasts ago where I said I tried it out, but I couldn't get it working. Which is funny because as soon as I was done editing the podcast, got it up on YouTube, I went to try it again and it worked fine. So maybe it was just a quick glitch in my EverDrive. That happens sometimes. But it's a fun homebrew shmups shooter where you're a flying pig for the SMS. And if you like that kind of stuff, check it out because it's a free game, and if you have the ability to play ROMs, why not try a free, cool new game? Brad Dillon said that he believes I reported Mister had 1 to 2 frames of lag. Do I feel this is a huge negative compared to the analog solutions? And would this be noticeable by most people? So I have to slightly correct you here. The original scaler that was used in the Mister had about 2 frames of lag. Right now they're already working on replacement scalers that are going to aim for efficiency. So it is absolutely possible that you can get it down to less than a frame, if not 0 lag. And just to be clear, when I say 0 added over the, 0 added over what a CRT analog output would be, that's detectable by a console. So if it adds 7 microseconds of lag, it's quite literally impossible for that to affect gameplay. So to answer directly your question, 1 to 2 frames of lag is about what the FrameMeister is, plus whatever your TV adds. So I would notice that in a heartbeat. But once again, that is the scaler that it originally came with, that's being improved as we speak. And heck, maybe even by the time this Q&A goes live, there'll be a new version of the scaler up that has even less lag. So I just, if you're buying this for analog use now, meaning the VGA output, so it could be RGB, VGA, component, whatever, no added lag. And if you're buying it for the HDMI output, try it with the newest scalers and the newest updates to it, and it's continuously going to go down. So, when your other question, do I feel this is a huge negative compared with the analog solutions? If this was the final design, I would say yes, but it's not. And I think this is a platform that's going to grow and evolve pretty quickly. So if you already own a Mister platform, I would just do the updates and try it again. But I think that it's going to get down to 1 or less and won't be an issue at all. Solid Unit had an interesting question, and the answer could be a few different things. So I'll try to go through it quickly. He has a ShinyBo RGB to component converter that's being fed by a G-SCART switch 3.4 through the DB15 port. So I think you must have a custom DB15 to SCART cable then. And it's hooked up to a consumer CRT through its component input. He recently hooked up his Mister over component to the same CRT. I'm assuming you mean directly into that CRT. And noticed that the colors pop more and the pictures seem a bit sharper. He was comparing to a real Genesis over the G-SCART switch through the ShinyBo to the Mister running the latest Genesis core. Does the ShinyBo have a low-pass filter that could be combining with the low-pass filter of the G-SCART switch? Or does the RGB to component conversion just naturally introduce some quality loss? So all of those are great questions. So I'm going to run through the easy ones first. The shiny bow was the one that Steve and I tested and it worked the best. I still have to edit that video and get it out. It's just, I don't know why I haven't gotten to it, but the shiny bow pretty much won the currently available to purchase RGB to component converter. The only thing that performed better was the HD RetroVision cables, but it's not quite fair because they're specifically designed for each console, whereas the generic ones need to work with all the consoles. So of course the HD RetroVisions are going to be better, but still a great choice. It does have a low-pass filter in it, and while you normally couldn't notice one filter on a CRT, having two could add softness, but I don't, and a little bit of softness, not a lot, but I don't think it would affect the colors. What I'm guessing, and you also asked, does the RGB to component conversion introduce quality loss? I don't think so with the shiny bow. I think you'll be fine. What I think you're seeing is the original Genesis and its shortcomings. That's something that Voltar and I tested a lot. Once we implemented the triple bypass or his board into a Genesis console, it had the correct RGB levels and the colors looked totally different, much better in fact, than just the stock Genesis. I guess I should rephrase that. When I say totally different, much better, please keep in mind that I do this stuff every day. This is, my job is to compare these consoles. So your average person might think they're pretty much the same, but from somebody that stares at these things all the time, it was an instant and noticeable difference. And I think what might be happening is your Mister might just be outputting perfectly solid component video levels, and that's why it looks better. So I would try it with Super Nintendo. The SNES core is working on the Mister now. And if you have the HD RetroVision cables, maybe plug one, if you have the SNES version, plug that directly into your TV and then try the Mister directly into it and see if that's the case. But my gut says that just the fact that you're saying Genesis means that you're seeing some of the shortcomings of maybe it's a Model 1, the original Model 1 Genesis, and the poor motherboard design that Sega did. Alex Douse says his original Xbox seems to be too dark. He's using component cables via a FrameMeister and Firebrand X's XRGB profiles. And when he watches YouTube videos of games that he's playing, they seem to have more detail and dark scenes than what he sees when he's playing. My first thought is, are you using third-party cables or official Xbox cables? Or any of the third-party that are known to be good? I believe the Monster ones, I was told, were pretty good for the Xbox, but that is something that I always hear from any of those consoles, PS2, Xbox, and I think even the Wii. People that use third-party cables definitely see issues with it. I've even seen, some pretty popular YouTubers complain about how certain games look on flat screens and they think it's the console, but it turns out they're just using a really cheap, $5 AliExpress component cable. So that would be my first thought. But, other than that, is your TV calibrated differently? Do you have it in like a THX movie mode? Is it a 4K TV or a 1080p? If so, do you have the RGB color mode set to full or half? There's a bunch of little things on your TV, but I would just start by asking about the cable, and then maybe see if you have your PlayStation 2. I guess if you have your PS2 with really good, the HD RetroVision component cables hooked up to the FrameMeister, and your Xbox with really good either OEM or good third-party cables hooked up to the FrameMeister, and the PS2 looks perfect on your TV and the Xbox doesn't, then I would really have no clue. Then you might want to check the forums and check the experts. But if then both of those look dark on your TV, I would mess with your TV settings and see if you could use some kind of calibration for those consoles. Maybe if Firebrand, if Firebrand X is listening, he could chime in on the profiles too. I'm sure he has way more experience about that stuff than I do. But it's a good question, and it's one I've heard a lot. So, hopefully we could get to the bottom of this and maybe have some better answers. Jens Jacob Christensen had two questions. I'm going to answer the second first because it's easier. He just got a French RGB Ness, so they're the fake RGB. It's the composite to RGB converters, and wants to add Tim Worthington's Ness RGB mod on it. Any pointers or things to consider? So if you're going to leave it as is, leave it a PAL console. I would just install Tim's board as usual, and then make sure that all of the RGB, S, and audio traces are severed to that multi-out, and then soldered directly, and that should be it. I haven't done my mod yet, but it should be that easy. It's not an easy mod, but it should be that straightforward. There's things to consider. Maybe you want to do a conversion and make it NTSC and PAL, or just NTSC. You have to change a few parts, but it should be pretty straightforward as long as you're keeping the original board and everything. But definitely let me know how you make out. I haven't even started my project yet. That's months away. It's a fun little personal project I'll be doing at some point. And your other question, you did a switchless region mod on a Mega Drive and plan on using the 2 free pins on the expansion port to switch the BIOS on your Mega CD. But you still haven't found a good non-destructive way to get region switching on the 32X. I have never bothered. All of the games on the 32X that I would want to play, like all 3 of them, I just play on the ROM cart, and I don't even have to worry about it. So I would check the Sega 16 forums and see if anybody has any ideas for that. If you're doing any mods to the 32X at all, what I would suggest is that you reflow all of the pins on both of the AV jacks, and especially the power jack. I've seen a bunch of 32Xs that people said didn't work, and all I did was reflow the pins on the power and it worked fine. So reflow all those, and if you have it apart anyway, and it seems like you're comfortable modding, just do a capacitor replacement, because those will definitely die on a 32X. And 32Xs, it seems to be a lot more common that they need a cap replacement before a Genesis would. So I would definitely suggest that. But sorry, I got nothing on the non-destructive region-free or region switch for the 32X. My RetroFix wants to know the latest on the 32X RGB output. I've done nothing. I've been swamped on other stuff. I plan on getting to it, but I gotta get through the rest of the Genesis stuff first. I want the Genesis bypass info to be solid, and then I'm gonna switch to 32X. You might not need a bypass. You might need to just lift the subcarrier pin and disable composite video. It might not be possible to make the 32X perfect. If you've ever opened one up, you could see the unbelievable mess from the factory that thing is. So I would just use it as is for now. You're not going to hate it. I guarantee that. It's not like if you used a really bad jailbarred Genesis. It's it won't be that bad. So just stay tuned. And I will get on it as soon as I can. Also, what about the JVC XI? I haven't really had much experience with those, and it's such a rare console. I would just be careful doing anything with that. You could pick up a Genesis super cheap, mod the heck out of it, and just with something like the XI or the CDX, I'll get to those last, but be very careful when you do anything like that. You should be able to take, because I think some XIs had an RGB port and some don't. You should be able to take the ones with the RGB port and do a bypass or or some kind of installation in there that is completely reversible, no cut, and safe to do. But I'll get to that after I get the main consoles done. And I think a lot of people I know that have XIs and CDXs also went out and bought a different one. It's a perfect time for a Genesis 3, a nice small little console that you could put the triple bypass in, just because they didn't want to constantly hammer out their very rare Genesis console. So I'll get to that at some point. Speaking of the CDX, Ryan Hart said he's using a CDX through an OSSC and noticed video noise. It's kind of fuzzy rolling up the screen, most noticeable on solid backgrounds. Switch the power supply. I had this same thing happen on the Genesis 2 that we did a bypass to that was perfect. I had used it for all of my comparison tests. It was absolutely crystal clear, as good as it's going to get for a Genesis. I plugged it into my TV, and I was playing X-Men, and same thing you're describing, just these weird horizontal lines that go from the bottom up to the top of the screen. And I'm going, that wasn't there 10 minutes ago. So just, on a whim, I swapped out my original OEM Genesis power supply for a brand new one. That one that HD Retrovision lists on their website. I think it's less than $20, and then you need an adapter cable. I'll leave the link to that. But that, as soon as I plugged that in, it was perfect. All the noise went away. So if that helps, you could also open up the power supply for your CDX and see if a capacitor is leaking. Unfortunately, there's been a few reports of these brand new cheap power supplies showing up broken. I bought a lot of them, but I had one that acted weird, and maybe it was the power supply, maybe not, but I threw it out because for around $10, whatever, I'd rather not take the chance. But that sounds exactly like the power issue I had. So try a different PSU, try that, excuse me, try that aftermarket one, or just open up your PSU and check inside and see if there's a noticeable problem with it. Darkstar7 says that after trying a few HDMI switches, the Monoprice HRM 2218F worked fine for him. It works with the Carby, automatically switches, and it does manual switching if needed. And it said it has the same LED style animation as the Hydra, just no audio noise. Switch cost about $60, but they're used, but about $100 new from Amazon. So that looks like a good choice. It's 8x1. I don't think this supports 4K 60, but that's fine. I mean, most of us are probably just looking to use this with the basic retro consoles for now. I found one that was 50, that was 6x2, that seems to be working great, except I'm having a problem getting audio over the HDMI ports. And it seems to be the exact same one as the View HD one I tried a few months ago. One of those cases where it's probably one Asian manufacturer that sells the same thing to 10 different companies, and then they put a different type of case or a different paint job or something on it. So, I'll keep trying. I know Dirk Swizzler's been trying a bunch of different cables for him, or different switches on his setup. And I'll link to the forum, or the topic on the Shmups forum where we were discussing all this stuff. But maybe post there and just let everybody know you had good results with it. But I'm still testing, and I still, the 6x2 $50 one I found has been the closest to performing how I need. I don't need matrix switching, but I do need 2 outputs, so we'll see. But thanks for letting me know on that one, and I'll keep that in mind if I need an 8-to-1 switch. UCLA Jedi Knight said, in the past I briefly talked about CRT projectors. He found a used Barcode Data 600 analog CRT projector. Would it be good for gaming? I don't really have a place to use it, but I can get it for $20. So for $20, just grab it. Same reason I grabbed that Sony projector for $60. Supposedly the Sony one I got was great. That ended up going to my buddy John. But to be honest, I don't really know much about CRT projectors. The only thing I know is that if you get a good quality one and you set it up and calibrate it right, people say that they're as impressed with it as they are a BVM. Also, it works with light guns, so you could have a 100-inch light gun wall if you wanted, which I think is absolutely killer. And I believe people have said it works with the Sega 3D glasses as well, which is kind of neat. So my suggestion is for $20, grab it. If you have the ability to give it a try, cool. But if not, let me know. UCLA, I'm assuming you're in Southern California. But, just let people know on the forums or something, I'm sure. Or I guess in my Discord might be a good place to talk about that as well. Because if you don't use it, somebody is going to want it. Because, those CRT projectors are big and heavy. And like a lot of these monitors, years ago, people might be discarding them thinking they're not good for anything when they obviously are. So... in fact, to be honest, general advice would be if anybody has a BVM, a PVM, a CRT projector, Extron equipment, basically anything that looks like it might be useful for $20, grab it if you can. Because even if it's not, it's worth the risk. I've gotten a few things that I thought might not be useful at all that turns out like, oh, hey, it was, completely awesome to get for $20. Glad I got it type of thing. So, yeah, I would definitely pick it up and cross your fingers. Well, that's it for this week. As usual, thank you so much to everybody who participates in these things. I really do enjoy doing them. It's a lot of fun. And for any newcomers, please post your questions for next week on the Patreon page, not on the YouTube page, and please post it in the same week that you found this video. I don't go back and check the other videos. It's just there's no efficient way for me to do that. So if I missed your question, if I asked it wrong, or if you have any new questions, anything at all, just post it down below on the Patreon page. The YouTube comments are locked because this is really just a Patreon or supporter experience. And I do make them live about a month after they go up, just so you know, I'm not keeping secrets from everybody. I really do want to include everybody, but these are focused as a supporter experience. So thank you very much for everybody who participated, and I'll see you guys next time, hopefully not as nasally and snotty in coffee.